Hey, it's McG. Welcome to No One Listens to Me. This is my podcast where I have to wait for the washing machine to finish its cycle before I can actually record audio.
Before we dive into today's episode, we want to take a moment to remind you of some important points. The content provided on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. While we strive to bring you accurate and up-to-date information, we are not experts in legal or medical matters. Therefore, nothing discussed on this podcast should be interpreted as legal, medical, or professional advice. By tuning in, you acknowledge that the host and any guests featured on this podcast are sharing personal opinions and experiences, and we do not claim to be authorities in any field. We want to empower you, our listeners, to make informed decisions, but ultimately, the responsibility for any actions you take lies with you. We cannot be held liable for the consequences of any decisions made based on information shared on this podcast. Remember, everyone's circumstances are unique, and what works for one person may not work for another. Please use your discretion and seek professional advice when necessary.
This week, I'm a little bit blue based on a matter of the heart that, sometimes they just don't go away as quickly as people would like them to. So I'm a little bit sad, but I'm still filled with rage about many little things. And I thought maybe before I start the actual scripted podcast, I might voice some of my very strong opinions that no one ever listens to. And you're probably going to find out why no one listens to. First of all, I live in the DMV area. And if you don't know what that is, that's the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And I will give you one other hint as to where I live. I don't live in Maryland. Here's the problem. Drivers from Maryland, I'm sure that you learned how to drive either in a much better state than Maryland or you just got the right education and you passed that driver's test. But I just want to make sure you know when you come into Virginia, you cannot coast in the left lane. We have a law that says the left lane is for passing. You're holding everybody up and I need you to move over if you are not passing. And you might say, well, my kid who was like 16 said this to me, that doesn't make any sense because you're not always passing. Okay, let's not get too literal with this. Passing, right? I'm in the right lane. People are going too slow. I'm going to go over into the left lane, get around those two people, and then move back over in the right lane where I'm supposed to be. I actually saw an electronic sign for this 2 weeks ago on Interstate 81 when I was driving to Kentucky, and it said, first of all, one of them said, all y'all need to slow down. So you know that the plural of y'all is all y'all. So all y'all need to slow down. Don't make the speed limit 70 then, okay? And I stand corrected on where I saw this other sign. It was in the DC metro area. The electronic sign said, the left lane is for passing, not coasting. It should have added, looking at you, Maryland. Okay, the next thing that's on my mind is why do people go out of their way to pronounce names, not really even complicated names, wrong? We're all human beings. We're all entitled to some respect. And it's a form of disrespect, in my opinion, to not make a decent attempt to learn how to pronounce someone's name. My name's easy to pronounce. Now, what I'll tell you is my name is actually Christina. So I get versions of that like Christine. Sorry, no, that's the wrong vowel on the end of that name. Chrissy, I'm not even going into why that should never come out of your mouth. Christy, and I'm not really even sure how that happens because Christina and Christy, they don't have the same amount of syllables. And then there's just flat out. So, yeah, it's a pretty simple name. Bob is a simple name. John is a simple name, whatever. But a complicated name, you just say to someone, can you help me with the pronunciation of your name? Or, maybe you just have them say it, repeat it to them, have them tell you how to say it. You're not going to look like so much of a jerk as you would if you just got their name wrong. And then, of course, you have the category of people who intentionally give people's names wrong because, you know, you don't seem like enough of a jerk already. So why don't you just continually pronounce people's names wrong? I used to work, well, one of the jobs that I held, I was in management and we would have like an award ceremony every quarter. And for some reason, my boss, bright, capable, nice person would stumble over names when reading them out at a public event. Well, a work related event where there's a lot of people. And so I would go out of my way on the list of all of the people to phonetically spell out some of the names that were a struggle, for pretty much everyone. And you know what? That guy never followed my little cheat sheet for him. And so he would mumble through it and look foolish, and I would just be, over there kind of bubbling under the surface in rage. This is back when I really needed to learn how to chill out a little bit because I don't see that as respectful if you can't get someone's name right. I also worked for someone, well, with someone who you know how like Jim is short for James and Jack can be short for John and Jeff is short for Jeffrey. Well, this person's name, what he wanted to be called by his full name, like Michael and not Mike. And he would get real worked up about it too. And so, I mean, this is what he wanted to be called. So I called him Michael. So then, great. You get everybody understanding that you call him by his full name. He just assumed everybody else who worked with him, his peers, etc., also wanted to be called the long version of their name. For example, he wants to be called Michael, so he thinks someone who goes by Jeff wants to be called Jeffrey. And so he would address people, guys, as the long version of their name. Just totally didn't care. Didn't care. Just figured everybody was like him. And so I mean, again, learn what people like to be called. If it's a passing meeting, I mean, I get that. You're not going to be like, we have 30 minutes together and I'd like to spend 10 minutes of it learning how to say your name. No, of course not. But, this is in the day to day. And, I'm not going into any of like, what's happening out there in the world right now and people's inability to learn how to say a name that's been pronounced the right way in many places all the time, whatever. But all right, so I think I've been talking about this for like 4 minutes. So suffice to say, pronounce people's names right. It's just not that difficult. It is not. Okay, there, I said it. Okay, so I want to wrap up self-awareness slash worry about yourself for a couple of reasons. One is that I have written a book called Worry About Yourself, and a lot of what I've been talking about in my episodes has come from that material. But I kind of left everybody hanging because we went from how to actually care for yourself, self-care, the meditation, the mindfulness moments. Then we talked about how there could be characteristics that you have that aren't actually, they're not good qualities, they're not good characteristics. They can sometimes rub people the wrong way. Um, you can find yourself doing things that are uh, coming from a place of negativity or can be, kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Set to derail someone, problematic, troublemaking, those kinds of things. And how you to practice self-awareness in the workplace. And I think the final thing that we need to talk about is if you're working in an environment that appears to be toxic, and I really don't want to do another piece about toxic work environments because I know that's been done like crazy, but I kind of wanted to talk about the role that HR plays in the functionality at work and helping people get along, helping the workplace be positive, and setting the tone for expectations for behavior, just open discussions, accountability, and how to get your team moving in the right direction. So that's what I will touch on today. I did have a podcast. I hope you listened to it with my friend Tulane, and we talked about toxic family members. And really, we talked about family members and people that you don't really want to associate with anymore. And, that can be because they're toxic. It could just be a you problem. It could be a number of things. And I don't want anybody to be left after that episode thinking, these two women sound like maybe they're just really difficult and no one can, if people don't do what they want them to do or behave the way they want them to behave, then they just cite I'm putting out boundaries and then you're just done with it. That isn't what that was about at all. But somehow these two things meet up. And so I'm going to get back with Tulane on some future episodes, and we're going to, just talk through some of the things that we think are really important as we all navigate through life work, the way we get along with others and building relationships, maybe even tearing down relationships. At any level in the workplace, it doesn't just have to be the highest leader, the highest ranking official. You can assess and align your team with the mission. And this can be done again at any level. Understand the mission and the objectives beyond just mere awareness. And that involves evaluating how well your daily actions and projects align with those goals. So, your company has a mission, and even your department may have its own mission. But if you don't know what you're working towards and you don't know how you contribute to it, chances are the success will be something that just kind of happens. And there's really no measurement and no follow up on whether the actions and the activities match with the mission that's been set. As a self assessment technique against your mission, have reflective practices. Let's say you're, the manager, the director, whoever. Regularly reflect on your tasks and your projects and ask how they're contributing to the overall mission. As the individual on the team, say to yourself, even if you're not getting this feedback right away from your supervisor, how are the things that I'm doing contributing to this mission? Feedback loops. So seek feedback from peers and supervisors and gain insights. The reason why you're doing this, obviously, is to gain insights into how well aligned your efforts are with the team's objective, and be ready for what you hear. And then goal setting. So I want to talk about a couple of things with goal setting. One, you as an individual can set your own personal goals that align with the team's mission and objectives. It doesn't have to be written down, it doesn't have to be formal, but it should, if you're going to go to the effort of doing that, it needs to be measurable, it needs to be specific, it needs to be attainable, realistic, time based. And as you're working, ensure that your efforts are consistently contributing to the larger aims. So that's for you personally. And you have to make sure that if you're ever going to show that to someone, you've got to be ready for the fact that your boss might say, this does not align well. Here are the goals that we've set together, and let's try to figure out how those can be more contributory. Contributory? Let's just look at how your personal goals align with the goals that were set by you and me. And so the second thing about goal setting is here's the point I'm going to try to get across, and I'm going to skip the part that has details about me and my, most recent positions, because there's some things I can't talk about, but I can tell you that I've been involved in goal setting for years. And at no time should a goal be set by the person that you report to that does not relate to your actual position and the mission that's been given. So people see this on both sides. Like, I'm the boss and I'm setting the goals. I know what the metrics should be. I know what the reasonable expectations are. And I'm going to put this together. And at performance evaluation time, I'm going to go over this with my employee, and we'll, come to an agreement on it and we'll sign off. This has to be a collaborative process. Sometimes we get lost in thinking about development of people, or situations where the staffing is low or we're not getting enough contribution from everyone on the team. So we will assign a goal that is not related to that person's job. And so then you're assigning someone a duty to go and learn, execute, and continue to be successful at an activity that doesn't contribute to the entire company. In your mind, it might, but what is the person going to do with those two or three KPIs, whatever we're calling them today, that actually directly speak to the effectiveness of the department. Let's say you are the manager of customer service, and what you are trying to do with your call center is manage efficiency. And so everybody has goals related to that: productivity goals, efficiency goals, customer service goals, whatever the case may be. You can directly tie a numerical improvement to what? Retention of customers, higher satisfaction ratings, better speed to service, whatever it is that you're looking at. Those are as tangible as they can be and as directly related as they can be. Well, why would you go to the manager of customer service, for example, and say, I want you to set a goal for yourself that you're going to bring on new business partners for something that is just a new product that we have that we're thinking about doing, and it would probably just be a self-service online thing. Okay, I know I explained that badly, but I pull examples. Sometimes they don't always make sense. But what I'm saying is, it isn't directly related to the contact center. It isn't related to customer service numbers. It's kind of a sales job, kind of a business development job, or maybe even it's a marketing job, or it belongs to finance. What are you doing dipping your toes into the waters that belong to the other people? So you see this for what it is. It's, yeah, I expect employee A to do all the things I expected them to do as the manager of customer service, but I also want them to do this other thing that they don't regularly do, and I need them to be really good at it. You've set people up for failure, and you've probably upset them in more ways than just, oh, great, more work. So, goals aligning with the mission and the vision, very important to make sure that those are quantifiable. They fall under the SMART acronym, and that people have the tools that they need in order to make things happen. As you continue to move on as a member of leadership of your team, do your team assessments. It's got to be done periodically, and you need to assess their collective alignment with the mission. And this could involve reviewing the progress. So you regularly review progress toward objectives, and that's to ensure that the team is on track. You just can't leave that undone. And then adjust your strategy. So you have to be willing to adjust your strategies and approaches if they're not yielding the desired results. And you should celebrate milestones too. I can't underscore enough how important it is, even though you're trying to keep metrics, for example, in the forefront, you still need to recognize and celebrate achievements that move the team closer to its mission and reinforce the connection between individual efforts and the team's success. Here's some of the benefits when you understand and embrace the mission. So, first of all, you have increased motivation and engagement. And so, when team members see how their work contributes to a larger purpose, their motivation and engagement levels rise. They feel a sense of belonging and significance, and they know their contributions matter. I mean, I don't even have to go into any more detail on that. It makes perfect sense to me. You also get enhanced cohesion and collaboration. When you have a clear mission, it fosters unity, and when everyone understands and is committed to a shared purpose, collaboration improves. Team members are more likely to support each other, share knowledge, and work toward common goals. Your decision making will improve this way as well. So, understanding the mission and objectives provides a framework for decision making. Team members can use the mission as a touchstone for evaluating options and making choices that best support the team's goals. Then you get greater productivity and efficiency. When you have aligned efforts, those lead to greater productivity. And when everyone's working toward the same objectives, there's less wasted effort and more focused action. And the alignment streamlines workflows and it enhances overall team efficiency. Grasping the team's mission and objectives is crucial for any team member or leader striving for success. It provides clarity, direction, and a sense of purpose, and it aligns individual efforts with collective goals. By understanding and embracing the mission, setting smart objectives, and communicating effectively, and with regularly assessing alignment, teams can significantly enhance their motivation, cohesion, decision making, and productivity. And as you move forward with this knowledge, remember, understanding the team's mission is not a one time event, but an ongoing journey. Consistently revisiting and reflecting on the mission and objectives will ensure what? Sustained alignment and continued success. Now, with the clear map in your hand, you're better equipped to navigate towards your team's destined achievements. And you're probably thinking, why are you explaining this to me? This is like Management 101, vision, mission statements, all of that. Well, I wouldn't be talking about it if there weren't situations in the workplace where even the most important people lost sight of the big picture. And all it can take really sometimes is someone who lacks the kind of self-awareness or who has been encouraged to stir the pot just a little bit to have the alignment of the mission fail when comparing that with the goals. And that's kind of allowing what we used to call the infection in your section, or, it's really like or it could be entitlement. There's various different things that could be at work. But going back to what I was talking about in our prior episode, a lot of it is a failure on the part of management or even human resources to recognize behavior that is undermining the goals and objective and deal with it accordingly. Let's talk about aligning personal goals with team goals. I touched on that a little bit. Aligning personal goals with team goals is really, think of it as a compass, and it ensures that your personal development journey is harmonious and coherent with your team's trajectory. That sounds like a big sentence. I was proud of myself for writing it. But really, what we're talking about is a really vital alignment that creates an environment where both individual and collective objectives are met seamlessly. There's synergy. So there are many mechanisms to align those goals, and the benefits, of course, of the alignment are to have practical strategies to achieve it. So, why is it important to align personal goals with team goals? Well, it enhances motivation. So when your personal aspirations align with your team's goals, your work becomes more meaningful and you'll find yourself, more motivated to contribute because every task you complete brings you closer to achieving both personal fulfillment and team success. And this is a dual benefit. It creates such a powerful incentive to give your best in every endeavor. Another situation where we have increased engagement when you're doing this, it fosters a deeper connection to your work and the team when you get aligned and you're not just a cog in a machine, right? You are a pivotal part of a cohesive unit working towards a shared vision. This sense of belonging increases engagement. And when your goals align with those of your team, it fosters collaboration as well. And it facilitates career growth. How does it do that? When you align your personal goals with team goals, that opens up opportunities for career development. And as you work towards shared objectives, you gain skills, experiences, and visibility that can accelerate your career progression. That can accelerate your career progression. It positions you as a valuable team member who's invested in both personal and organizational growth, and it enhances your performance. So there's, at least four examples there of how helpful it can be with this alignment. When you align your personal goals with team goals, it helps you streamline your focus and your efforts. And that leads to what? Enhanced performance. You can prioritize tasks that matter most to both you and your team, and you can reduce wasted effort and increase productivity through doing that. And it ensures that your time and your energy are spent on activities of the highest value. I'm going to just go over an outline that I have of the steps you can take to align your personal and your team goals. So, first, I think I would go through I know I would go through a self-assessment. You have to understand your goals, your values, your aspirations. You have to have a thorough self assessment. And you want to identify what you want to achieve in your career and what motivates you. And once you have this clarity, then you have a foundation for aligning your goals with your team goals. So here are some self assessment questions. What are my career aspirations? What skills do I want to develop? What values are most important to me and my work, and what types of projects or roles excite me? After you do that, then get a clear understanding of your team's goals and objectives. So, here are some ways to understand them. You can go to team meetings and take notes regarding the goals that get discussed. You can review any formal documentation that outlines team objectives. And you can engage in discussions with your team leader to get a comprehensive view of the team's direction. This will work at any level. Now that you've done those two things, you can identify areas of overlap, and you could do that various ways. You can get a Venn diagram, just list or discuss with your immediate supervisor to identify synergies and alignments. Love those words. And then, as I mentioned before, set the SMART goals. If you're not sure about SMART, we're talking about specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, relevant, and time bound. I have interchanged before reasonable and relevant, but it's really just got to be reasonable. And then what are you going to do? So you're going to communicate and collaborate. I'm not trying to sing Ice Ice Baby, but you could also say collaborate and listen if you wanted to. Effective communication is so important. It'll ensure continued alignment, and just regularly discuss your progress and your challenges with your team leader and your colleagues, and seek input and offer your own insights to foster a supportive environment. Here are some communication strategies. Schedule regular check-ins with your supervisor to discuss goals and progress. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's not always easy. Participate actively in team meetings to update on your contributions and seek feedback. This is really valuable, and it can really be a fantastic part of your meeting if done well. Use collaborative tools to share progress, challenges, and adjustments. So you've done things like this. You've seen project trackers, and you've used your various different communication platforms to keep everybody up to date on what's going on. Make sure you have a goal setting framework. You probably already do. Performance reviews are also a good measurement. Project management tools, regular check-ins, professional development plans, those kinds of things. So, what can interfere with goal alignment? Conflicting goals for sure. If your personal team goals conflict, you need to address them, prioritize, negotiate, and do long-term planning. Do you need to change the objectives? Have they already been changed? So, if they evolve over time and they disrupt your aligned goals, you need to be adaptable. What does adaptable really mean at work? So, it's keeping yourself informed about changes in the team objectives. Be regularly updated. Make sure you're plugged in. Be flexible. Not everything that goes on your personal goals list will align with the new team directions. And what are you going to do when that happens? Proactively communicate, discuss changes with all of those stakeholders that are involved so you can understand the reasons why things are changing like they are and you can adapt. Lack of resources is really a big deal because we get all fired up. We probably got an inspirational speech from the big leader at work, and somebody has said something like, whatever it is, whatever ideas you have, even if the expense seems really high to you, we want to hear about it. And then you do that, and everybody's like, that sounds really good until you get down to resource planning. Because once you identify the resources, you need to do that early and you need to include them in your action plans. If you fail to do that, you might be really disappointed at the end of this exercise. Seek support. So go back to your team leader, whoever inspired you to share this and try to make an initiative or align it with the goals. Communicate your needs and request the support. And then leverage your existing tools that can help make that happen. But I mean, let's be real with each other. IT prioritization, that can be a big stumbling block. Budgetary restrictions can also be a big stumbling block, and Figuring out what is available to you that can help you get at least part of the way, get started, something like that, that's really important. You've got to keep those goals aligned and you have to continually reassess. This is an ongoing process, so you should regularly review it and adjust your goals to stay in sync with the team's ever evolving objectives. When you're reinforcing the mission as a leader, you're often seen as the linchpin that holds the team's missions and objectives together. And so, if you don't practice effective leadership, the team will not remain aligned with its mission. So, you want a culture of responsibility and motivation. You want to steer your ship towards shared goals, and you want to realize what your role really is in reinforcing that mission, what qualities effective leaders hold, and what strategies will help you in this. So, you need to understand leadership in the context of your mission. It's not just managing tasks and processes, it's about embodying the mission and acting as a pivotal force that guides, inspires, and aligns teams' efforts with its core purpose. Effective leaders internalize and embody the team's mission through their actions, decisions, and behaviors. And in so doing, they're serving as a role model, right? They demonstrate the team members the importance of the mission and how it can be manifested in day-to-day activities. Here are some key qualities of effective leaders. Effective leaders have emotional intelligence. They have a vision. They communicate. They have integrity, and they have adaptability. Leaders have to be adaptable to navigate the ever-changing landscape of business environments. Being able to pivot and adjust those strategies while staying true to the mission ensures sustained alignment and relevance. If you want to reinforce your mission, make sure you're reviewing it regularly with everyone. Integrate it into the daily activities of your team. Celebrate those successes and foster a culture of accountability. I have talked ad nauseum about accountability. It's always got to be there with everything that's happening with your team. If you have strong leadership on your team, you're going to have enhanced morale engagement, improved productivity, strengthened cohesion, and sustained innovation and growth. One of the pitfalls of, working on a dynamic team is you have different personality types. A good leader understands those differences and changes their leadership style based on what they learn through their interactions and relationship building with their team. Unfortunately, one of the things that can happen in a team is scorekeeping. Talked a little bit about this too. By nature, it's just insidious to be involved in scorekeeping. It sets psychological traps and it's detrimental to individuals and teams. And there's a difference between competitive and the kind of scorekeeping that can eat away at the team from the inside. So this refers to tendency to constantly compare oneself to others, and meticulously tracking wins and losses. Another way of defining it is the mental tally of who got the promotion, who received the bigger bonus, or who seems to be in the boss's favor. And this hyper focus on external validation and comparison can become an unhealthy obsession, leading to a host of negative consequences. Let's talk about the various phases of scorekeeping. So, we mentioned the promotion tracker. The promotion tracker meticulously tracks every promotion within the company, comparing their progress to that of their peers, and they may feel resentment or inadequacy if they perceive themselves as falling behind. There's the perks counter. Perks counter sounds really fun, right? Like you just go up to the perks counter, kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese, and you're like, I have these 15 tokens. Can I have that little airplane bottle of bourbon? But no, that's not what it is. The person who keeps a mental tally of the perks and the benefits others are receiving, like corner offices, company cars, flexible work arrangements, talked about that last time, right? And they feel entitled to similar perks and become disgruntled if they don't receive them. The accolade author. So, the accolade author as an individual will fixate on the recognition and praise others receive, and they'll feel slighted if their own contributions go unnoticed or undervalued. And they would advocate for projects that play to their strengths and support when necessary. more on the accolade author. So, the accolade author is the individual that fixates on the recognition and praise others receive, feeling slighted if their own contributions go unnoticed or undervalued, and they may engage in self promotion or seek external validation to compensate for perceived slights. There could be folks out there when we're talking about the accolade author who also is the um, there's two sides of the school of thought on participation trophies, and your accolade author may be someone who is used to participation trophies. And, it's so hard sometimes to keep track of the fact that maybe you've been in four meetings as the manager, and every single time only Johnny has gotten recognition for his high productivity numbers. And you might think to yourself, well, he's the only one making it happen. You have to find a way to distribute the wealth of the praise as well and really focus on team achievements too. You also have the workload weigher. So these are big in the workplace. The person that constantly compares their workload to that of their colleagues, and they feel aggrieved if they perceive themselves as doing more work for less reward. They may become resentful and disengaged and that may lead them to decreased productivity. So, what do you do? What do you do if you've got one of each or all of one or however distributed throughout your team? The answer is not something that, can take just a normal episode of a podcast to really dive into. But one of the important things is you have to make sure your team knows what you will put up with and what you won't put up with. And I don't mean like, oh, I've decided I'm not having any conversations about workload because I can't do anything about it. So why even bring it up? That's not what we're talking about here. It's the basics. Like if you have something on your mind related to goals and how you're performing against them as yourself, as an individual, let's talk about that. It's redirecting conversations that go down the road of, well, I think Johnny probably doesn't spend enough time on the phone with people because I get calls where he messed up. And why is it so great that you're praising him for not doing his job right? So, Johnny is not the problem, right? First of all, you have to worry about yourself. So let's talk about how you yourself are doing. I've listened to what you've had to say about Johnny, and let's talk about how I can help you improve, and therefore the team improves because the team is making it happen. Just fashioning something right off, off the cuff. So once you let complaints, for lack of a better word, scorekeeping complaints seep into your team, you might start drinking from a fire hose instead of just taking a little sip out of a cup. So the difficult thing is balancing the fact that you want engaged and happy teams and a good workplace, whether you're physically together or not, and allowing behavior that is not positive and is unlikely to produce the desired outcome. How do you do that without making people think they don't care? It's a big hill to climb. So let's talk about, and if you have to have a talk about scorekeeping, if you have to be, the person that brings everybody together and, for lack of a better term, paints everyone with the same brush, you can do that. You can say, listen, let's talk about what happens when you start scorekeeping. When you get into that comparison, the act of comparing yourself to others, that's a natural human tendency. But when it becomes excessive, it can lead to feelings of inadequacy, envy, and resentment. It also can create a scarcity mindset, which stems from the belief that there are limited resources and opportunity. And when you're in that mindset, it brings about competition and a zero-sum game mentality where one person's gain is received as another person's loss. And that's not how it works on teams. That is not how it works in the workplace. It shouldn't be anyway. External validation is also in there as well as a psychological trap. So scorekeepers seek external validation to measure their self-worth. So they rely on external markers of success. And we're talking promotions, raises, recognition, feeling good about themselves. And this dependence on external validation can be fragile and lead to disappointment and satisfaction. I also forgot to mention that the trash truck comes through. It's almost noon. I don't know why. They're just now coming by, but they make a lot of noise and make editing audio difficult. And then you have FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. The fear of missing out is powerful. It's a powerful motivation for scorekeeping. And if you're if you are infected with FOMO, you will feel compelled to keep up with your peers, even if it means sacrificing your own well-being or pursuing goals that don't align with their values. I'm thinking about like a pharma commercial. What are the side effects of scorekeeping? Scorekeeping may result in fear of missing out. You might find that you are compelled to keep up with your peers. And there might be, maybe there's always diarrhea when it comes to all side effects. So that might happen too. Just a little tip from me. Detrimental impact of scorekeeping. So I'm going to run through these. You probably won't be surprised to hear decreased morale, increased conflict, reduced collaboration, stifled innovation, and a toxic work environment. So all of this just from scorekeeping, that can't be possible, right? It's absolutely possible. This is, we're talking about human nature. And if it's human nature, you will see it somewhere. And the end result could very well be, and I would say this would be the worst outcome, the toxic work environment. That's really just a cumulative effect of all these negative consequences of scorekeeping. And it creates a workplace where you're constantly scorekeeping. It becomes a breeding ground for negativity, resentment, and conflict, and it hinders the organization's success. How do you break free from it? This is where the words worry about yourself come into play again. Focus on your own goals, celebrate your wins. They don't have to be celebrated for you all the time. Acknowledge and celebrate your own achievements, no matter how small they may seem. Recognize your progress and accomplishments. And when you do that, you can boost your confidence and self esteem and reduce the need to compare yourself to others. I used to always talk to someone very close to me in my life at the time who was really struggling with low self esteem. And for some reason, felt that the self esteem boost was going to come from someone else, that their spouse for some reason was making their self-esteem worse and would just wouldn't give it up, just mention it all the time. And at some point I just had to say self-esteem comes from you. No one can bring your self-esteem up except for you. And then, of course, a myriad of other points. So celebrate your wins, bring your self-esteem up. Practice gratitude. It's a big thing, sounds like a big buzzword, but when you cultivate a sense of gratitude for what you have, rather than focusing on what you lack, that can shift your perspective from scarcity, right, to abundance, and that reduces your urge to compare and compete. And so you need to also challenge your negative thoughts. You can't Sitting around with your negative thoughts is helping you in zero ways. And so when you catch yourself engaging in negative self-talk or comparing yourself to others, challenge those thoughts. Ask yourself, are these based on facts or are these based on assumptions? This negative thought that I'm just having, I'm going to go with the fact that it is not based on facts. I've assumed it now. How can I replace that negative thought with a positive affirmation? Let's say my negative thought is, I get my work done, but there's always at least one thing wrong with it. I never get it perfect. I never get it right. I'm never, ever going to do this right. And my boss is going to hate me forever. What can you say that's positive? First of all, you have to go easy on yourself. Does anybody expect perfection from you other than you? That's probably the case. How are those minor mistakes addressed? Is your boss kind to you and encouraging of not rushing to turn your work in? Yeah, say these things. Say things to yourself. You write great executive reports. You are always available, flexible, and there for people when they need it. All it will take for you to send these negative thoughts away is reminding yourself of your worth. A positive affirmation. I am enough. Another positive affirmation. I am a good person. Another, it starts with the simple things and works into some of the bigger things. And then one of the other things you can work on is fostering a collaborative culture. You work on celebrating the team's success. Give some of the feedback and the accolades to other team members as well whenever you want. Just want to give a shout out to Alex over there. Alex brought me three new potential leads. Three of them were, two of them converted and actually paid for our service, and I could not have done it without him. That also makes you feel good about yourself, and it helps continue to have everyone feel valued and supported. What you don't want to do is let those negative thoughts, the resentments, the scorekeeping to eat away at you to the point where you are tempted, which we talked about in previous episodes, to cause trouble for others. And again, just to remind everybody, this is not me saying don't bring your concerns to members of management or human resources. You know what those things are that you should never be quiet about. What I will say to management and those in HR who might be listening to this as well is obviously no one's concerns are minimal and should be trivialized. I think it's the way that you go about handling it. What is it that your leadership wants the culture to be like? How will you deliver the complaint to the other person, whether it's a peer or someone in management? And then how do you wrap it up? If you have to investigate, how do you go back and give information to someone who complained, who isn't going to necessarily get their needs met? Encourage communication and dialogue, but not through skipping levels or not understanding what is something that should be brought to that level of attention and what should be discussed with that person's direct supervisor first to see if there's something that can be resolved without having to bring in too many people. I think that there can be a cycle of abuse of an open door policy. You'll know it when you see it, and then you might have to, it's like putting the toothpaste back in the tube. Once everyone learns from the first person about bringing their concerns a little too high up or involving HR, for example, then, you might get something, a wildfire that's a little bit out of control. And how do you level set with that? And then, stay in your role, be a fact finder, don't prejudge. And certainly, if a decision's going to be made that the person who was subject of a complaint is going to be disciplined, how do you go about managing the notification of that outcome and making sure that the other party, who's also an employee of your company, isn't forever in this place where the whole entire department or company thinks, well, if so and so had a problem and then, the boss got in trouble, the boss could just be bad at everything, and so I might bring this to their concerns. I'd like to pile on here because I didn't get the promotion I wanted. I didn't get the raise I wanted. What is motivating you to do that? Just think about that. We started out talking about self-awareness, holding that mirror up to yourself, being willing to say to yourself, I do this thing that I can see now is causing issues. I show up late, therefore the meeting runs late, and I ask about what was discussed before I got here. They have to go back and backtrack. I'm not going to do that anymore. What I'm going to do if I show up late is sit down, start listening, ask questions as needed, and get filled in on what I might have missed in another way. I am micromanaging, so I'll go down that road. Why are my staff meetings always so quiet? Why does no one ever contribute? How come, even though I invite everybody to speak freely, I don't actually get anything useful from that? Oh, okay, so now someone's telling me I'm coming across as a micromanager. I'm not a micromanager. I just worry that things aren't going to get done. And so I feel like I have to remind people to do things a certain way. And no, I basically didn't ask for it this way the first time. Now I've decided, now that I'm reading the document, that I don't like the way it's formatted. I would like to move things around. I can't help it that the other people that I'm sending the work back to are disheartened by that. I just want it to be right. We can't have any mistakes. You're not practicing self-awareness. And telling someone, coaching up about that is probably career suicide. So if you have heard through the grapevine, been told in a meeting, whatever the case may be, that you're micromanaging your team, the next thing you can expect is that you will lose people off of your team. They will leave the company as soon as they can find a place where there is not so much micromanaging. To me, micromanaging means that the manager who's doing it doesn't feel like they have control over you name it. It's a loss of control, or they're being held accountable for providing answers that they don't have, and they are pressuring the people down below them to produce those answers quickly in a way that you can understand so that you can get somebody off your case. You've got a systemic problem with micromanagement, and it goes very much beyond you. And I know we don't want to say, I need you to do this because Bob asked for it, Bob wants it, Bob sees it as important. We want to be able to say the why without just saying, the highest ranking officer in this company wants it. It's beyond my control. You still have that wonderful challenge of having to explain why you're asking for or doing something. Be ready for the feedback you get. If you fall on your sword and you say, I know in the last 6 months, it's probably seemed like I've made a lot of requests upon you and I don't always give you a good reason for it. I want to be better about that. Tell me what it is specifically that you work on, that you're responsible for, that we can try to return the balance of timely completion, compliance, and reporting without me sticking my nose in where it really doesn't belong. I don't know what these conversations are supposed to sound like, but I can tell you this. I think it's a mistake to try to justify micromanagement with some BS. Like, um, people don't realize that if I'm more hands-on or I'm more involved than I used to be, it's really for your own good, or it's, to protect you, or whatever the case may be. No one is falling for that. No one. So have that self-reflection, do your mindfulness, make your lists, listen to what you're told, and make some changes. And then what if you just can't? What if you're like, I'm going to be a micromanager forever? That's in my DNA. Well, you better find a team that understands and can work with it. And good luck. And while we're on the topic generally of toxic work environments, I'm reading so much now on social media. Nobody is shy on LinkedIn anymore. And yeah, I love infographics. So I'm looking at one right now, toxic workplace behaviors that damage mental health. And big advocate for mental health and caring for yourself and caring for those that work for you. So, micromanagement is one of those. Micromanagement reduces autonomy and confidence and can lead to a culture of distrust. Incivility, incivility, staff are ignored, undermined, and belittled. That's not good. Blame, there's a culture where individuals are blamed for mistakes. Also, another toxic workplace behavior damaging mental health, lack of empathy. Negative judgment is made when people share and talk about their struggles. So you can't even talk about what you're dealing with, what's bothering you, without a negative judgment. Self entitlement. Staff are not treated equally. Leaders find themselves superior to others. Lack of support. There is a lack of support and care for those who need help. Another toxic work environment characteristic, unrealistic expectations. Staff are expected to work long hours and be available 24/7. I mean, that's one example of an unrealistic expectation. I could probably give you a few more. Just scanning through, a toxic workplace is more likely to change you than you are to change it. Leave. That's with Jim from The Office and his dry erase board. Here's another one I just saw. Imagine waking up every morning excited for a job you love, surrounded by a supportive team, and thriving in a positive work environment. This dream is 100% achievable with a bit of effort from business owners. Toxic work environments result in high turnover rates, job dissatisfaction, and low productivity levels. As small and mid sized business owners, how can we create a positive work environment that attracts and retains top talent? To foster a workplace that encourages high quality work, innovation, and teamwork, we must support both remote and in person employees and set them up for success. Then there's a list of ingredients. This is from Danielle C. Levy on LinkedIn. Danielle Levy, Levy, PMP, MBA, Chief of Staff and Business Growth Strategist and Consultant. Check her out. Ingredients, prioritize onboarding and training. Yes. It's not enough to say we have a trainer. I can't think about how many times you say you prioritized onboarding and training just by having a trainer, but no one's ever observed the trainer. And people come out to do their jobs out of their training environment and they can't do them. Allow mistakes to happen. Yes, you have to allow mistakes to happen. Conduct employee check-ins. Not enough honesty and too much fear in the workplace. Stop that by checking in more often. Have tough conversations. Yes, have them with the individual. If the problem is not confined to your group and it's just this one person, you can have that tough conversation with that person and encourage team collaboration. So, all extremely good ingredients for a positive work environment. And last but not least, I have a post from Am I the Asshole? I had to really do a little bit of searching. Every single one I read, I was like really lengthy, and I'm like, okay, what is this person's problem? No, 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 not that one, not that one, not that one. So we'll go with this one. Here is an Am I the Asshole submission. AITA, my last divorce has me feeling a bit like I was a major jerk. See, I married my best friend, but after we married, he changed. He made fun of my job I had because he got fired from the place after continually shoving his political beliefs down people's throats. And I stayed and tried to make ends meet. He did have inheritance, but I felt we could have used that for something else. I have to say, I became very unhappy. I tried to keep the pay I tried to keep the place clean, but he would always put me down and gaslight me by saying he wasn't. I'm not really sure what that has to do with Okay. List of things. Everything I cooked had something wrong with it. Like it wasn't the way his mom made, or didn't like the spices. He hated anything healthy. I like to eat healthy. If I cleaned, I missed a spot, or he wouldn't acknowledge it until I drug it out of him. The house was always cluttered with his crap just sitting there in boxes and never put away, even if they were filthy. I felt I could never make the house nice because it had to be to his taste, not mine at all. If I watched something he didn't approve of, he would come and make fun of whatever I was watching until I changed it to shut him up. He wouldn't go to the movies, only was allowed to watch what he liked. He says he lied. Okay, was only allowed to watch what he liked, which was mostly propaganda and documentaries. I second guessed everything I liked about myself because he didn't approve, such as makeup or dressing pretty. In the end, I was dressed in man's clothes, mostly camo. He kicked me out of the master because he said I snored and couldn't sleep, so I ended up in the smallest room of the house, way in the back on a broken bed he refused to fix or let me buy. I ended up being admitted into the psych ward 3 times, my doctors told me because of intense stress. He had financial control. Everything except the phone was under his name. I could never make him happy because he was always unhappy, not counting him beating the animals with his fist. Oh, no, you did not just tell me that he beat the animals with his fists. He made me feel at the end, even though I wanted the divorce, that I didn't try hard enough. I felt ashamed, but after I left, I felt better. I moved on. Now I'm in a healthy, happy relationship with the love of my life, and it feels so different. And I am doing all the things I wanted to do, like keep the house clean, pursuing my dreams, and doing very well at them. But it makes me wonder, was it my fault for not trying harder? I did give it near 7 years, but I can't feeling. Okay, I can't help feeling, is what I think what she's saying. Maybe I was a jerk because I shouldn't have let his attitude stop me. I do not want him back ever. I am just afraid of me falling short with my current partner. Maybe there is something wrong with me. AITA. Okay, first of all, this is probably, this guy sounds like what my therapist would call a narcissist. And uh, she tends to say that a lot with people I know. Kind of weird. And so you need to get away from narcissist immediately. Abusive to pets is just a step away from abusive to you if you didn't already go through that and just failed to mention it. There's nothing that you did wrong. And questioning yourself about trying hard is a path you don't want to go down. I can't speak for everyone. As a woman, I think I spent a lot of time in an unhappy marriage. One, because I had a child, and two, because we can talk ourselves into anything to avoid the guilt and shame that you feel over your marriage failing or the difficult prospect of finding love again, which, by the way, I can tell you, love the second time around is fantastic. You just have to find the right person. And so, if you're measuring yourself and being tough on yourself because you ended a marriage that made you unhappy every single minute you were in it, I I have to tell you, this is this is not the way to go. Focus on the positive. You spent 7 years, which is a long time, trying to make things work when you knew they weren't going to work. You knew it. You knew that you were headed for divorce almost immediately, didn't you? You did. And for women, I think we hold out hope for things like, maybe I don't mean like he'll meet with foul play, but I think we tend to think it would be so much easier if he died. I don't know if men think that or not. Or, what if he did cheat on me? Maybe that would just be the ticket out that I needed. Or maybe we find someone else who can take care of our needs and we step outside. There's so many different things that can happen. But the point is, you got away from someone who was damaging your mental health and you did not go back to it. And you should never feel guilty for putting yourself, your self care, your mental health first. I'm so glad that you got away from that. Don't ever question yourself. Just appreciate what you have, lose yourself in it. I love losing yourself to a love that transcends anything you've ever felt before. It's a wonderful thing. So don't ever look back with regret. Just be glad you only spent 7 years and not 20 with those kinds of issues. So, having said that, I'm sorry I couldn't make fun of it other than the fact that it wasn't, written perfectly, but that's what happens sometimes. So, as I end this podcast, I just want to remind everyone, be good to yourself, don't look back, get out of toxic work environments, and steer clear of toxic relationships. So there's more to come with No One Listens to Me, including more chats with my friend Tulane with different perspectives on all kinds of subjects that no one ever listens to me about. Bye.